How do you all feel about having troops overseas?
I'm totally against having troops overseas.
And why do you think so?
These days, anyway. It's been too long. All our soldiers are being killed needlessly. We were promised when our new president was put in office that he was going to take our troops out, and he still hasn't done that. And countless lives are being lost every day. It's time to try something different.
Okay. Anyone for troops overseas?
I think we should have troops overseas because there are people over there making nuclear weapons and things that are going to potentially harm other countries, and we should help prevent that kind of stuff from happening.
Well, these are both very valid points to having troops overseas and not overseas. But I agree with the point of having troops here for multiple reasons. One being Homeland Security. When September 11th, 2001, when the World Trade Centers were attacked by the Al-Qaeda terrorist organization, there's been many ongoing conflicts overseas. Billions of dollars have been spent, many countless lives have been killed, like civilians, our soldiers, and 10 years later, to this day, the conflict still continues. In the 2008 election, though, Barack Obama promised to have troops out of Afghanistan and Iraq by 2014. Now, should we even wait that long to do that? Why are we doing this? Why do we have troops overseas if there's been no terror, like no more impending threats? I think that's just the U.S. playing peacemaker. I think since we have this role of a superpower, we need to feel like we should go into different countries that are having conflicts and feel like we need to resolve it. And this has been going on since the 50s and 60s when Korea and Vietnam.
Go.
I think the reason why we keep troops over in Afghanistan and Iraq today is because the U.S. wants to play peacemaker in the world. Just because we have a lot of money and superpower and control in the world doesn't mean we need to interfere with countries' foreign affairs all the time. The reasons for this, I think, are not all for the correct ones. There's ways to control peace and use our own resources in a way to help our own advancement without invading foreign countries. The war in Afghanistan began on October 7th, 2001, when the U.S. Armed Forces launched Operation Enduring Freedom in response to the World Trade Center attacks, as you can all remember. Our goal was to dismantle the Taliban and the Al-Qaeda terrorist group. We were successful in dismantling the Taliban and creating our own democratic regime that we helped set up for the Afghanis. But I think the risk and losses we had in troops and money were not worth what we have succeeded in. To this day, troops are still remain in Afghanistan and is one of the high costs we have today in U.S. society. Obama has set for troops to be out of Afghanistan in 2014. Now, again, why do we have to wait so long to have troops out? All we're doing is regulating and making sure that basically nothing happens in Afghanistan while their government is becoming more stable. The cost of war in Afghanistan today has increased every year for the past 10 years. Now, why is that? Why has it been increasing when we're not even fighting? The total cost today, can anyone guess what it would be?
I can't even imagine.
Like 13 million? Trillions?
Well, almost. It's right now, the cost for just the war in Afghanistan is $455 billion.
Oh.
Whoa.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
What?
Now, the war in Iraq didn't start at the same time as the war in Afghanistan, but it's still continuing today. We still have troops. It's not necessarily a war anymore, but we still have troops stationed in Iraq. It started in March 20th, 2003. Does anyone remember why?
I remember.
Why?
It was when they were searching for weapons of mass destruction.
Correct. It was in response to suspicion of WMD, which is an acronym for Weapons of Mass Destruction, during the President Bush administration. I believe we received some intel, and we in the United Kingdom infiltrated and invaded Iraq in search for these weapons of mass destruction. But after inspection and investigation, we could not find any of these weapons of mass destruction. Now the interesting part is, after investigating, the U.S. found out that the Iraqi nuclear and biological programs have not been active since 1991. So, was there a threat at all? Was it just to arouse suspicion and distract us? I mean, Nobody knows, but why? So what's the point, you know? There was no impending terror attack, so why were we there
And you
spending
still
money?
got people over there.
Exactly.
So why was the information so bad?
I don't know. That's what I'm trying to get at. But although although it led to the capture of Saddam Hussein and we did rebuild the Iraqi government, the cost of the Iraqi war, does anyone know what that is?
$500 billion.
It is $802 billion
Oh my god.
year to date.
Jeez.
Yes.
That is intense.
It's almost each
So, does the pros of rebuilding the Iraqi government and capturing Saddam Hussein outweigh the cost of war and the loss? We don't know if Saddam Hussein was behind the terror attacks on the World Trade Center or Osama bin Laden. We still haven't captured him, but no weapons of mass destruction were found or threat of an attack. Since the war began on March 20th, 2003, a total of 4,447 troops have been killed. Since the war in Iraq began in March 20, 2003, a total of 4,447 troops have been killed, while 33,003 have been wounded, estimated. And again, what I said, over $802 billion has been spent on the war in Iraq alone. Obama has said that the troops will be out of Iraq at the end of this year. Both the war in Afghanistan and Iraq have cost the U.S. over $1.29 trillion over the succession of 10 years. Now, do you know what the national debt is today?
It's trillions of dollars.
It's $1.3 trillion. Now think about that.
So they could have solved it with all the money spent.
If we weren't in Iraq or Afghanistan, I mean, even if we weren't in there for
Half the time.
half the time, we still would have saved the money. And this is my point. I think that we could have used the money for different resources, homeland defense, keep our troops at home, guard our borders, just like we did in the old days of isolationism. According to the Center, the total casualties have been almost 10,000 troops, and just 10,000 troops. That's what it has been for just the U.S. and countless more civilians. But now, let me leave you with a thought. What if we rewound to September 11, 2001? What would you do if you were the president?
I don't know. I think I would have gone after Osama bin Laden.
But would you stay in the war as long as it has been in?
No way. I
would-
wouldn't.
I don't know. I don't know if that. Again, would you have lost everything that you had? You know, if you left this country without order and
Well, think
leadership.
about what if you didn't retaliate? What would you do instead?
I don't know.
I think what we should have done, instead of using the $1.3 trillion we've used on the war, is used that money for our homeland defense, using to cure diseases that we have today, and paying for our debt we have in our U.S. debt against all the things we have. I mean, sure, at the time, patriotism in the U.S., like, I'm sure when, but go back to the day of
Oh yeah.
September 11th. Everyone wanted, like, the patriotism kick in, We wanted to go over there and we wanted to resolve the conflict. But, I mean, think about the pros that would happen if we didn't retaliate and the lives that could have been saved. And then this is what we used to practice back in the 40s and 50s in isolationism. Isolationism is basically a foreign policy where we do not have any alliances, and it's also called protectionism. Basically, we were successful in this in World War I and World War II. We remained out of the war and didn't have any alliances until impending threat was found. Then we entered, and we were successful in both wars by winning both of them. I think these are the reasons why we shouldn't have troops overseas for a prolonged period of time. And I think we should bring our troops home today.
Good job, Chris.